Wait, that sounded ridiculous. So we're out in this rice field, and in this video, gonna do a bike check and bike setup of the Vitus Summit 29er. So this has been my enduro bike now for the last couple of months, and I haven't really done like an in-depth kind of bike check and bike setup sort of video, so that's pretty much what I wanted to do in this video. So we're going to jump right in. I'm going to go through the spec that's on the bike, and then we'll talk a little bit about how I like to personally set my bike up for racing as well as riding as well, actually, just to get the most out of my bike and have the most fun. So we'll jump right in. Hiya. This man is guarding his rice fields. So this is a 29er Vitus Summit, the 2021 model. Carbon fiber, large frame for this year, dropped down a size. Last year I was on an XL. This year I feel way more comfortable on a slightly smaller frame. We'll get into that in a second. Fox 38 forks in the front, so wider diameter than the 36s we were on last year, which helps with stability when we're on the rougher tracks. We have the Fox DPX2 rear air shock, which is amazing. We're running Shimano XT full drivetrain, and then we've also got Shimano brakes as well. We've got the XT brakes on there. So talking about the frame for a second, last year I was on an XL frame, which, if I'm honest with you, it was a fairly big bike. Like, I thought bigger was better, and that was kind of the way the bike world was trending, that, you know, if you have a bigger, a longer kind of bike, it's going to be more stable, it's going to be faster, and I think I got sucked into that whole spiel of things, went with what I thought was the way to go, and found that the bike was just way too big. Yes, granted, it was great for going in a straight line when you're going really fast, say in some sections of the Enduro World Series races we were at last year, but for 80-90% of the time, the bike was just too big. So when you were trying to maneuver it around tighter corners, or even to an extent on jumps as well, sometimes, like, it felt a big bike to move around in the air. So this time I actually looked at the geometry before I decided what frame size to go for, and thought it would be better to go down a frame size, which Amanda has done as well. She went from a large last year now to a medium. I think she is about 5'6", 5'7", I think. I'm about 6 foot, and this large feels, not even a blatant plug, it feels the best size I've had of any bike I've ever owned. The size is spot on. It's big enough, but it's not too big. I don't feel like crunched up or hunched up on the frame when I'm riding. I've got plenty of space. I've got ample space to move around the bike and go fast and have fun. So we'll talk a bit about the suspension. So we're on Fox again this year. Fox suspension front and rear, 38 fork on the front and the DPX2 air shock on the back. I haven't tried a coil shock on this yet, but stay tuned because that is my plan. Last year we couldn't run coil shocks on the bikes just because there was the tolerance in the frame. There wasn't enough space to run a coil shock. But this year they've completely redesigned the frame from the ground up, giving you enough space to run a coil, which I can't wait to try that out. So 38 fork so far has been really good. The extra 2 mil on the diameter of the stanchion, you can feel the difference. Like, you can feel the difference in stability and stiffness. Last year though, I did hear a number of racers actually talking about that being a bit of a disadvantage, believe it or not. And at some of the races, people were actually going back to 36 forks because they felt the 38 was too stiff, basically. But it'd be nice to get these on a racetrack and see how they actually perform, because at the minute I've only been riding out in Bali and back home in Innerleithen. So it'd be nice to get them on a proper racetrack and test them when they're actually, you know, when you're going flat out at race pace. Same with the air shock as well. Like, this has been absolutely awesome for tuning. Like, really easy to set up out the box. So far, so good. I'm pretty happy with it. So it's worth pointing out at this point as well that you can actually run this bike in full 29er mode, 29 front and rear, or the mullet setup, so 27 in the back, 29 in the front, thanks to the little flip chip it's got, which is pretty cool. I've not tested the mullet setup out yet because I'm fairly happy and comfortable on just 29er wheels, but it could be something for a video in the future and to test out to see what the mullet is like compared to the full 29er. So gearing, like I said, we're on full Shimano drivetrain, which is straight how it comes out the box. Full XT Shadow 12-speed derailleur, shifter, cassette, chain, the works, and cranks as well. 170mm cranks, can't really fault it. Great price, great product, strong, not too expensive if you break it and need to replace it. I've always been a Shimano fan over SRAM. Last year we ran some TRP stuff towards the end of the year, and really actually enjoyed it, especially the brakes. The brakes were incredible. Like, I've never had brakes so powerful. I actually ran the TRP brakes last year with the bigger rotors that TRP have, the 225mm rotors, I think they were, or 220mm rotors, and stopping power on the longer Enduro World stages was amazing. Brakes didn't heat up as fast. You could definitely feel there was more power, which obviously if you're running smaller rotors, sometimes they can heat up fairly fast, and that can obviously affect brake performance, but didn't have any of that with the TRP stuff, which was unreal. Brakes though, for now, we're on Shimano XT brakes. Again, out the box, this is how the bike comes. I've always loved the feel of these levers. They just fit my fingers. And then cockpit, we're actually running nuke-proof stuff. So we've got 37mm rise handlebars and a 50mm stem on here. So I like to run my bike fairly high at the front. I feel it gives me a lot more control and confidence when I'm riding. So I've actually got all the spacers stacked underneath my stem. If you've never tried a higher front end on a bike, I would strongly recommend you go and try it. I feel it's made all the difference to my riding in terms of how I feel and how I ride. Handlebar width, standard 760mm wide, I think. Brand X seat post, again, this is the 170mm dropper post. No issues whatsoever, it's just a cable dropper post. Does the job. If it does break, which I've never had an issue with them, fairly easy to fix and replace the parts that are needed for it. So I know we're in Bali. You might be asking why we've got a mudguard on the front. It is currently monsoon season in Bali, and if you've watched any of our previous videos while we've been here, when it rains, it rains. Whoa, this is a lot different than riding in the dry. I am soaking wet. So we've got a Mudhugger mudguard going on the bike. This is their version 1, long version of the mudguard. They've just literally released in the last few weeks the new mudguard, which I'll put a link to in the description and a cool picture on the screen so you can see what it looks like. I haven't actually got my hands on that yet, but pretty sure that'll be on the bike as soon as we get it. And we're also testing out these little numbers. So this is the STFU silencer, I guess you'd call it, the trail version. They keep the chain inside these little rubber units, and it stops the chain just slamming around, smashing your frame, and just keeps your bike silent as you're going down the trail so you can actually hear what's going on. So tyres, we're on WTB tyres, front and rear. So we've got the Vigilante on the back, and we've got one of my favourite tyres in the front, which is the Verdict, which is a really good tyre. Absolutely love this thing. We've got DT Swiss wheels going on here. So these are the EX 1700s. I think these are 29mm width or 30mm width, and they've proven to be strong as hell so far, and they seal really well tubeless, which is a big thing for any racer or rider who doesn't want to deal with tyres always going down. So now we'll talk a bit about bike setup for racing and how I like to set my bike up. When I'm preparing for a race or at a race, the bike will be set up generally to wherever we're riding. For example, some of the races we've been at, the different venues, I'll have like a base starting point for my suspension, and then I'll tweak the suspension probably in practice a little bit just to basically fine-tune how the bike feels at that specific location. I'll put the suspension settings I'm currently using on the screen now so you can see the forks and the rear shock, so you can get an idea of how I like to set my bike up. But yeah, generally I'll have a base setting and then I'll just work from that. I feel that's the best and most efficient way to get the most out of your suspension and get it fine-tuned for the trail you're riding, instead of just like turning the dials and hoping that your suspension starts feeling better. I don't like doing that. I like just adjusting one thing at a time, tweaking it, testing it, reviewing it, and then just keep doing that until you get your suspension bob on. Brakes, I like to run my brakes fairly bitey, far out from the bar. So I know a lot of people run their brakes fairly close in, so the lever is almost touching the grip when it actually bites the brake pad. I like to run mine so I'm just like touching the rotor essentially. Tire pressures for racing, generally I'll probably stick between about 27 psi on the back and about 23-24 psi in the front. At races I will usually run a tire insert, so talked about this on the channel before. I run Rimpact tire inserts, which I'll put a link in the description below. You can go and check those out. Basically a solid tire insert just to give me a bit more peace of mind when bike racing, that my tire isn't gonna, or my rim isn't gonna get flat spotted and destroyed or anything like that. Some people don't run them. I like to run them for extra security and strength, I guess. This isn't really a bike setup piece, but it's kind of like a cool accessory. Again, I'll put the link in the description below to this. Every time I post a picture on Instagram or social media or see people on the trail, the amount of times I get asked this question is like, what's that blue thing on your stem, is mental. I'd be a millionaire if I had that. I got a pound for every time I got asked that question. But basically, quad lock is like a little adhesive mount on the back of your phone case. And basically twists and locks on, there we go. That's not going anywhere, it's solid. Turn your bars, like. And then the next question is, do you go downhill with it? No. You probably could, but I don't. I go uphill with it on, listen to music, which is always great for, or if you want to use it for navigation, this thing is awesome. So there's a link in the description below to the quad lock stuff. I currently use the out front mount, which is like a handlebar mounted, the blue thing basically. There's a universal thing that sticks on the back of your phone case, or you can buy phone cases for specific phones. Always carry a pump round as well, so this is just a one-up pump, easy access. I have a canister in the bottom of here as well. It's back in there, nice and fast. When it comes to racing, one thing I've actually learned and realized is that when you are looking at buying products or accessories or things to help you, fix things or carry things, you should always think about, if you're taking racing seriously, this is like how fast it actually takes you to get the product off its mounting device or use it and then fix the issue and then put it back on your bike and get going. Because obviously if you're racing, time is of the essence. So I would always keep that in mind. I've never had a problem with one-up components. I think they're fantastic, and I know there's other products out there, but that's my recommendation. That's pretty much it, guys. That's pretty much a breakdown of the components on my Vita Summit and generally how I would set and approach racing from a bike setup perspective. Let us know in the comments as well if you enjoy this sort of like techie bike check kind of videos. Happy to do more of them if you want to learn or know anything specific about these bikes, or more about racing tips or bike setup for certain things, or more tutorial style stuff. Take care, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one.